It's almost too easy now to get a sound. 90% of the joy that I derived from being in the studio, and I was a happy guy, was discovering sound in unexpected places. When the multi-tracks came in, I remember one time I went out to the parking lot. I was working at Universal, and I had an office there. And I was doing a film. This guy comes out of the doctor's office, and he's just got a diagnosis that his young, Ally McGraw, his young and beautiful wife, is gonna die. And, you know, it's inevitable. And he just sort of stumbles out of this building in New York. And it's a traffic jam, and the guys are just leaning on all their horns. So I went out in the studio parking lot, and I sampled 3 or 4 different car horns. We used a VSO and created 16 tracks with a different car horn at a different pitch. And I had the notes I wanted. So when he walks into this traffic jam, this melody came out of this traffic jam on car horns. He heard her, you know, her theme. So we would do things like that. I remember like bringing in lumber from the lumber yard and then ripping the boards lengthwise, like a circular saw ripping through wood, turned it into a note. One time when I was working with George Martin, I was flying sailplanes at the time, and I had an Italian sailplane that would probably red line at about 200 knots. And I knew how to fly it. We were doing that tune, If You See Me Getting Smaller, I'm Leaving, that I did last night.
If you see me getting smaller, I'm leaving. Don't be grieving.
I said, you know, George, I want to put my glider on this album. And George Martin was the best. He would do anything. Most of the crazy things that the Beatles did, him and Jeff Emmerich figured out how to do them. George Harrison would say, I want this to sound like there's a man singing this on a mountain 30 miles away. And George would go, you know, look at Jeff, and Jeff would look at George, and they would just shake their heads. And somehow or other, by the time the guys came in to record the next day, it sounded like a guy, you know, on a mountain. So they'd do that. So he was game for anything. So I can just remember this one day that I took my glider up to 10,000 feet and ran it up to 170 knots, which was like, well, the wings could come off, you know. They could, but they probably wouldn't. And got down there and leveled off the glider at about 10 feet and flew it down the runway. Every 100 feet, there was a Neumann mic all the way down this runway. And I said, George, I said, how is that? And he says, well, Jimmy, I think we need another take, you know? And on the records, you can hear it. You do not know what it is, because it goes like that. The digital thing has come along and it's taken all the fun out of it, because you can literally, I have a Kurzweil 2600, and that's like a keyboard instrument that has a lot of built-in samples. So you say, well, gee, you know, I'd really like to play the organ at St. John the Divine. Oh, well, we got that. To me, it kind of feels like cheating. Like when the Beatles did Sgt. Pepper, for instance. This is in Jeffrey Emmerich's book, Here, There, and Everywhere, which is really like a must-read, because he tells in detail how they cut things like Day in the Life and things like that nobody could figure out. How the F did they cut this, you know, on a 4-track recorder? It's got everything on it, orchestras and choirs. And well, one of the things that sort of helps explain it is they found a vault in the basement at Abbey Road that had all of the old BBC sound effects tapes on them. For decades, all the BBC did is go around England just recording stuff, just whatever stuff was there. the Beatles discover this immense library, and they start using them on Sgt. Pepper. They use a town band on Yellow Submarine, and they didn't cut it. They found it on a tape in the basement, and they said, "Hey George, put this on this track," and he layers the tracks and remembers where everything is supposed to be, what the proportions are. Because when you mix, for instance, the strings with those horns, those two things are going to be bounced, and that relationship will always be the same. So you'll never be able to turn the horns down, and you'll never be able to turn them back up. So in your mind, you have to have a picture of the whole record that you're making, the architecture of it, and the relative importance of each thing, and look far enough ahead that you don't get out over your skis and all of a sudden the brass band is too loud and there's no way you can turn it down. It's really a miracle of just being clever about using the technology that you had. And today, you don't have to do that. That was the fun stuff to do.